Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
Hey everyone, happy Friday. You're listening to 919. My name is Jack Devnarain and this is Reality Radio. It's as real as it gets. Every Friday night from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. where we have a guest live in studio to talk about the incredible stories that shape their lives. Tonight, my friend, screenwriter, director, an extraordinary man and an icon of South African filmmaking, Darrell Roodt.
Gee whiz, I can go now, Jack. Thank you. I've never been described like that, you know.
Welcome to the studio, man.
Yeah, well, thanks for inviting me. That's very cool. Just quickly, I want to say a shout out to my peeps in Pretoria. I'm back. Yeah.
You got people in Pretoria?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
When you're from Pretoria.
Go for it.
So, from Joburg to Pretoria. And,
Right.
and whereabouts in Joburg? Where did you hang out when you were growing up?
Well, I lived in Hillbrow.
Right.
But, you know, at that time, Hillbrow was a melting pot, a real cosmopolitan, amazing place.
At which time? Give me an
so,
epoch.
So this is 70s.
Okay,
late
good, right.
I'm a child of the 70s, you know.
Yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it was a very, it was the most free place in South Africa, the most, you know, cosmopolitan.
Yeah.
There was a lot of interaction. So it was actually a very cool place to have grown up, you know. Then I was also lucky. I went to school at King Edward School, which was a semi-government school. So they weren't giving you the government like dogma. They were encouraging you to be a thinker, a free thinker. So I was so lucky to go to that school. I had great teachers who really, you know, instilled a strong moral fiber in you, you know?
So from school days, what caught your interest then as a young school-going man, somebody who's looking at the world through these Hillbrow eyes, and you're looking at this cosmopolitan world of possibility, but there were limitations at the same time, being the 70s.
Yeah.
So where were you placed in all of that?
Well, you know, my mother was obsessed with movies, and I grew up in a, you know, didn't have money. We lived in one flat, my sister, myself, and her in a one-room flat. But so our entertainment every weekend, we in the morning show, the afternoon show, the evening
really?
show, we
Movies?
go to movie. Oh yeah,
wow!
And she was obsessed with like, you know, musicals. So I would see the same film over and over and over again. So I quickly got a taste for it, you know.
Yeah.
So then after school, where I went to school was in like Houghton, but up the road in Yeoville was a bug house called the Piccadilly.
Yeah.
So for 5 cents you could go in. So I used to go every afternoon to watch movies.
Really?
And this is young, when I'm young. It's when I'm like 8, 9 years old.
Yeah.
So immediately I had a powerful instinct about where to put the camera and what movies are about. And I knew then I wanted to make movies.
See, I don't know if another person in the same position would get the same kind of technical insight. Somehow you were watching these movies and you were thinking, so that's where they placed the camera, that's where they got the actor to move and say their lines, and you got in really close. You were thinking about it quite technically, even at a young age.
Yeah, but it's because when you watch them repeatedly, you know. So, for example, he has a story which, you know, I like to tell because, when I met Quentin Tarantino, I met him when he was presenting Reservoir Dogs in Cannes, and I was presenting like Sarafina in Cannes.
Oh,
and we
come
became
on.
buddies. We became
no,
buddies.
hang on. Let's just start the story again, because I don't know if you're having me on here.
No, this is all a true story. And the interesting thing about Quentin Tarantino, we had exactly the same experience with movies growing up.
Yeah.
He had also, he came from, you know, he used to go and watch films a lot. And all our favorite films were very common films that were pretty obscure,
Yeah.
but he was totally into them. So he was totally informed by movies, as was I. So
Yeah.
it was fascinating in the latter years to see how he progressed and what he was about. And so it comes from, I think, lots of filmmakers, I think the better ones, love movies.
Yeah.
I think you've got it. It's like Picasso said. Like Picasso knew how to paint in the proper way, but it was only by doing that he was able to become the abstract great artist that he was, because he knew the rules and could throw them away. So
Right.
it's film rules.
And isn't that what they say about, or that's what makes a great director like Tarantino, somebody who knows the rules enough to break them.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, a lot of people criticize, for example, Quentin about his films are all informed by other films. Yes, they are, but all films are ultimately informed by other films. Martin Scorsese, it's interesting, if you watch an interview with Martin Scorsese, he will talk about his informative films. Then when I go and watch them, they're films that I wouldn't have, because I didn't grow up in the 40s or the 50s. But when I watch them, I see, that's where Goodfellas came from, blah, blah, blah. So, look, there's another way of approaching it too. Some people say it's better not to watch movies, that it's better to visualize them for yourself. So there's a school of thought that,
No, I get that. And I suppose we're going to come to this later on.
Right.
Because I want to pick up later about what it means to create something completely original and whether such a thing is even possible at all. But let's just go back to film language. Film language, you learn because you got to become conversant in that. It's got to be currency. So you see how that currency is being used when it plays out on another movie. You learn the same kind of language in order to make yours, right?
Right, yeah.
But what were the stories you were interested in telling?
Well, I was growing up in South Africa in a very volatile time. So even though I was informed by films like Jaws or The Towering Inferno or all these disaster films, which I loved,
disasters.
But at the same time, I was becoming acutely aware of my environment where I was growing up in. And I thought, wow, why aren't we making these films, So I was young when I was already starting to think that, So it became confusing for me because on one hand, I just wanted to make car chase films and blow things up. And
French Connection.
Exactly, you know what I mean? But at the same time, I was starting to get pulled in another direction. So it became a bit confusing. And it has confused me my whole career, actually.
Really?
Yeah, because, I love horror films, But then I also love, intimate dramas. So it's very difficult to peg me. And then sometimes I just don't, I don't know. So I get lost in my own passion for movies.
But I love that, though, because I don't think a director should be rooted in one particular genre or one type of storytelling. The medium of film allows you to do so much.
No, look, I think the best directors are the ones who have a univision and they go one way. I think so.
Okay,
you know what I mean? But I just find it hard to resist. For example, I'm off to go and do a little horror film now. You know what I mean?
Wonderful.
And I just find it hard to resist because I'm going to go and scare people. What a concept, It's such fun. It's very visceral, and the camera it does very interesting things as opposed to a drama, which is all very earnest and serious.
So if I have to go back into my own memory archive to think about the horror movies that really, really scared me, not just because I was a young boy watching this, but if I had to watch it even now, it would scare me. So I would say The Omen.
Oh, yeah, very.
The Shining.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, both, seminal films. And I watched The Omen just about 2 weeks ago. Incredible.
Really?
It holds up beautifully, They don't make those kind of scary films anymore. Now there's just too much blood and too many flash cuts and too much, there's not that genuine sense of, something strange is going down.
Something strange is going down. I love that. So, without giving away too much of the movie that you're going to be shooting, where are you going to place this horror movie?
Well, this one is a slasher, so this is just people getting killed, and you don't know who's done it. You know what I mean? But it's fun. That they do say that horror films are pure cinema because you're using cinema to scare people. You know what I mean? And there's nothing better than when you've made a horror film and you sit in the audience and they all go like this. Wow. That's power of a filmmaker.
Is that now a science or an art or a bit of both? They've worked this stuff out by now.
Well, they have, but you can keep pushing the envelope in very interesting. Yeah, I know, absolutely. So if you watch some of these found footage films like Paranormal Activity or Blair Witch Project, they're very clever because they're so ordinary, but they're really not. They really get. I remember watching Paranormal Activity in America, and half the audience walked out. They were that scared.
They were that scared.
Half the audience walked out. They didn't want to sit in that cinema. It made them uncomfortable.
And that's interesting for you as a filmmaker because you're also watching your audience reactions.
Yeah, no, exactly. You're playing with your audience. You're 100%. You are manipulating them because all film is manipulation. is manipulation. When you do a drama, you're also manipulating them, but you're not doing it in that way but you can as well. There's nothing also more satisfying than watching your drama with an audience and you can see all the tears going. It's awesome.
I love that. Yeah. And you know what? I realize that in that sense, the manipulation is not a sinister attempt, because telling stories to your kids, you could tell your kids fairy tales, but you could be setting them up for a surprise.
No, absolutely.
It's the same kind of manipulation. You're just changing the language.
It's sitting around a campfire telling a story.
I love that. And ultimately, that's what all storytelling is. We'll be telling you more stories. Yeah. Coming back after the break, we'll be talking to director extraordinaire, Mr. Darrell Roodt.
Reality radio. As real as it gets.
Calling all tech enthusiasts and innovators, Empire Partner Foundation is excited to announce our upcoming hackathon events. Get ready to unleash your creativity and showcase your tech skills. Our hackathons is where innovation thrives. Join us and be a part of something extraordinary. EPF's hackathon events, where your tech dreams come to life. Check out our website for event dates and registration details at empirepartnerfoundation.org.
919 has signed a code of conduct that is enforced by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa. Under the code, we are committed to giving news that is accurate, comment that is fair, programming that is not harmful to children and that does not amount to hate speech, or the description of gratuitous violence or explicit sex. If you think we're not living up to that code, you can inform the BCCSA. Direct any complaints in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission of South Africa to PO Box 412-365, Craig Hall 2024. Or email the BCCSA at napsa.co.za. For more information, visit the bccsa.co.za. We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for reality radio as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
And we're back. It is Reality Radio on a Friday night on 919. With us in studio, Darrell Roodt, talking movie making. So what I admire about directors is the only way it can all function is if it all comes together. Everyone is an expert in their own respective field. And you've got somebody who's going to light, and somebody's going to pick up the sound, and then you've got these bodies in there who are standing in a certain relation to each other and saying these wonderful words written by the writer.
Right.
So somehow it has to all come together. Now, how do you see your job as a grand orchestrator of all of that?
Yeah, so I mean, directing there is a trick to it, because you have to know when to make the decision about everything. So there's always 10 people asking you, like a question, for example, but you need to know which one to answer first, in descending order,
Yeah.
So for me, it's always fascinating, because you get to work with the writer, and that's a very solitary thing. Then you get to work with the technician setting it all up, and that's a very group thing. But it's they're behind the camera, so they tend to be a bit more boorish and loose. Then you get to work with the actors, and actors are a very strange breed, and they've always been very strange to me, because it is weird to stand but it's strange to stand in front of a camera and emote and cry and pour your heart out and then become another character. Wow, that's a very kind of strange being that you have to negotiate with, and it took me a long time to understand actors, to get into their headspace and their thinking. And I always used to get, not annoyed, because it was always internal, I'd never express it, but it would be like, just do what the screenplay says, or just stand there because it's nice light.
Yes.
But then once you understand the psychology of an actor and acting and what it requires, the actor knows everything, actually. And if you as a director don't listen to the actor, you're going to find yourself in big trouble, not only on the floor, but finally when you watch a film, because there's not going to be this greater truth that's actually fiction, but it's truthful because the actor is bringing that,
That is so interesting you say that, because the stakes have to be high enough, which is why you'd often get this when an actor comes to you to say, you want me to move from there to there, but what's my motivation? But the motivation is a big thing for the actor, because it's the motivation that makes that move important enough for the actor. If they have to do that, they have to believe in it.
Yeah, of course, because you can't be mechanical or awkward. And so, and the interesting thing is, so say for example, I made a film where I learned the most about acting quickly was I made a film called The Stick. And that was an anti-war film made back in the day in South Africa, I think maybe 1984, 85. But I had Sean Taylor, Greg Latta, James Wiley, Franz Dabrowski. I had every top actor in the country there. But there were 7 of them. And you want to try and juggle 7 people thinking all the time and about their motivation, and oh my goodness, I had to think so fast because a scene's running and there's 7 great actors acting and you got to find all the beats in it. Wow. I mean, that was definitely baptism, on fire,
So anti-war movie, but at the same time you had to go through the experience of national service. What was that? Was that as soul destroying as many people described it?
Well, it was tough. You know what I mean? The army was not an easy experience by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, because you go to high school, and I went to a good high school, and they taught you what it is to be a decent, upstanding citizen. On your first year. And when you get to the army, they thrash that all out of you.
Right.
So it was kind of a horrifying experience. And then also the ideology of the army, didn't sit comfortably with me. So I used to get, bullied a lot, you know what I mean? They used to call me the mad communist, The
mad communist is what you were.
Exactly.
Did you describe yourself as a communist?
No.
Yeah?
Just if you had an alternative point of view, you were a communist.
You were a communist, yes.
So I had quite an interesting trajectory because I was never part of the left wing in South Africa, left-wing filmmaker challenging the status quo. I was always interested in the middle ground. And the middle ground was represented, well, my dad was a bit more right than he was middle ground. But I always thought if I could get to the soft underbelly, the middle ground, and you could make them understand that, hey, there's human beings involved in this equation. It's not black and white. There's the gray area in between. If I could reach that audience, gee whiz, then maybe I can make a tiny little contribution to making people think about their environment, Because my mom made me think about my environment when I was growing up, She was very liberal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And not a bleeding heart liberal. She just had a total compassion for human beings. And I think I was very lucky that she instilled that in me. And I'd like to believe that I am compassionate and I do understand people,
I would imagine that as a filmmaker, you would need to absolutely intrinsically understand human emotions.
Yeah. Human emotions and life,
Yeah.
So, for example, one of my favorite filmmakers, and I always tell this story to whenever I've spoken to kids at film school, is a guy called Werner Herzog, and he's still going. He's an amazing man. He's an actor too. He was in The Mandalorian. He was the bad German actor, but he's also a brilliant director who's made some of the best films ever made. Aguirre, Wrath of God, Fitzcarraldo. But someone once asked him at school, so Mr. Herzog, which film school is the best film school? Should I go to London, Sydney, or America? And he said, do me a favor, travel the world for 10 years, then come and ask me that question. Learn about life.
Learn about life.
That can go into your film. And that was the thing that Werner Herzog, I learned very young as well. You've got to learn about life. And you put life into your movie. You don't just put another movie that you've seen into the movie. And the problem with the younger generation today, they're doing that. Everything is derivative. There's no more life. There's just no life. It's all just...
This is a real thing because, just to reflect for a moment on my own journey as an actor, I had studied drama at high school and I went into university and I picked up 2 years of it there as well. It was never going to be enough to take me and my level of skill to a place that would open the door into the professional industry.
Right.
So having resigned myself to, it's probably never going to happen to me anyway as an actor because there's just not enough acting work to go around back in Durban. This was in the late 90s or the early 90s. What I did was I found myself picking up my first full-time job as an employee working as a policeman.
Wow.
Those 9 years of my life. changed everything for me as a performer. Because I found myself now on the set of Isidingo, which was my biggest gig ever.
Right.
And everybody else had been through the mill as, these are graduates of serious drama programs.
Yes.
And I was coming in and I felt quite insecure about, the fact that I didn't have what they had.
Right.
But I had to acknowledge within myself, I have something from those 9 years
which they don't have.
Which they don't have either.
No, amazing.
It was such a huge lesson for me. It's exactly what Werner Herzog would say. 10 years of life.
That's exactly, and that informs you, from there on. You know what I mean? So I think it is important to. The problem with a lot of filmmakers as well is they just get, and I'm guilty of it too. You just get caught up in filmmaking. So filmmaking is great, but it's very insulated. There's so much more happening outside the screen, and it's good to experience life. It's good to get out there and do things. Or climb Kilimanjaro like you did, because that's a vital life experience that you can put into one of your roles. You know what I mean? In terms of endurance and kind of thing. So you've always got to be pushing yourself to experience life and not just watch movies. And don't be passive.
Life certainly never gives up. So
there we are.
We'll never stop experimenting.
Exactly.
And as long as our life adventure continues, we'll be telling new and different stories.
Absolutely.
So have you done a horror movie before this one?
I've done a couple.
Yeah.
Like kind of less successfully. The one was more successful because I just treated it like seriously and made it hard, and it was a good one. The other one was I tried to make it that comedy horror. Wow, that is difficult.
Was that tough?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So to get the tone right was extremely difficult.
And what was it like when you come into now you carrying all these years of experience? You're already an established filmmaker, and then you make Yesterday.
Well, Yesterday was almost like a return to like roots. For example, that was part of the Mnet initiative of that year, where they chose 7 films to make. My film came in last, and I'll never forget going to that meeting. It was just very weird, where they said, none of the other films we didn't want to make this. But I swear,
they're telling you this.
They told me this. But just go and see what you can do. A Zulu film about a woman dying of AIDS. No one's interested.
Sure.
And that became the seminal South African film up to that time. You know what I mean? And I just had a very powerful feeling for it, that this would be I saw this news item about this woman who had gotten AIDS from the husband. She had contracted it from him, and she had this young child, and all she wanted to do was stay alive long enough to see her child go to school, because she'd never had that privilege herself. This is a deeply rural woman. And I thought, oh my goodness gracious, if that's just not the most astounding story of belief and wanting to live to see your daughter go to school. So I used that as the basis and made a film from that. And ironically, people don't think this. The more parochial and villagey a film is, the more powerful it is universally, because they understand that village life, So they really, it impacts them and it makes them think. So it was amazing for me to travel all over the world and watch Yesterday, from Thailand to America and back again, where it would move these audiences.
So wherever you went in the world, people responded
the
to
common
that
experience.
message.
They were feeling the same thing. And that's why I think we've strayed for a bit at the moment in this new South Africa, because there was the Johannesburg Film Festival a couple of weeks ago, and I remember reading all the panel discussions afterwards, and 30 years into the new South Africa, they lost. They don't know what to do. And for me, it's so simple. Just look at yourselves, guys. Tell your stories. Instead of trying to imitate American TV series. Don't do that. You can do that, but let's do the other stuff too. And then you'll break through on a level that you can't even imagine.
That's about being brave, though, hey?
Is it really? Isn't it? Well, look, maybe films have changed fundamentally, because certainly when I was growing up, there was a culture of cinema, which was... It was electric. We'd go to the film festivals, you'd watch the new Bertolucci, you'd watch the new Werner Herzog, and it would inspire you, and you would have these discussions about it, and it would take you on this epic journey. There's none of that anymore.
None of that?
No,
really?
No.
Wow.
Not sitting on the couch, flicking through Netflix. I'd love to make a film about just flicking through Netflix. I want a 24-hour movie where you just flick, trying to find something to watch.
We'll call it The Flick.
Exactly.
Okay, but what was the nomination? Your Academy nomination?
Okay, so that was amazing. So I was in my living room with my best friend, a guy called Ivan Milbra, sound guy, and we've written a lot of films together, including a couple of horrors which we made.
Yeah.
And so we were sitting there, and we were watching CNN. So CNN only announced best film, best actress, and they also do best foreign film.
Yeah.
So the first 4 foreign films came out. I thought, oh, well, that's it. We're not going to get it. Then suddenly they said yesterday, you've never seen anyone. I hit the ceiling. I don't know. I think I cracked the ceiling.
Fantastic,
It was
man.
amazing. So, it would have been great to have won it because my mother was still alive. And it would have been nothing more beautiful than to say, Mom, this is for you. And I mean that.
I can imagine you would have said that.
And I would have because, I owed it to her. You know what I mean? And so that never happened. And then Gavin Hood won it the next year. And then yesterday was instantly forgotten because, it was only nominated, not the winner.
Yeah.
So, it is what it is.
Yeah, and I suppose but that's also part and parcel of having an awards function.
Yes.
You're taking the best that that the panel judges to be these are the ones that made the cut, and we're celebrating this one as the winner because.
Yes.
But it's still part of your filmography and the way you touch people.
It's wonderful. I mean, there was nothing more amazing than going to the Oscars and sitting next to John Williams and Michael Mann and Clint Eastwood.
Yeah.
And it's like what the hell? What an amazing experience.
What an amazing
From
experience.
Hillbrow to Hollywood. I mean, that's quite a journey.
I love
know what
that.
I mean?
And
That's
talk about sitting next to great directors. Here I am in studio with Darrell Roodt. We're going to take a break now because I can't handle it anymore. And we'll be back. We're going to talk stories, and there's so much more to cover on Reality Radio.
They say nothing ever lasts. But what about the Fast and Furious franchise? Or showing Anaconda 2 for Friday Action Night? Or how Brooke is still forgiving Ridge Forrester like 50 seasons in? And then there's Burger King's Whopper Meal deal, which is still going strong. So get your hands on 2 flame-grilled Whoppers topped with the freshest ingredients, plus 2 portions of crispy golden fries and 2 bottomless drinks for only 130 Rand. Only at Burger King, where good things do last.
919. 919.
Oh, my sister.
Sister girl.
7 a.m. traffic. Now a taxi driver is hot on your tail.
Beep, 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 beep.
Then he passes in the emergency lane and he pulls a finger to you.
CB, demand.
Now Mr. Finger is pulled over by traffic police.
Come on.
And as you drive past, you say it. Yeah? You deserve it, you mummish.
Justice.
It's a small pleasure, like getting a King value meal.
No fingers.
From a very small $39.90.
Only at Burger King.
Darrell Roodt, our guest in studio tonight for Reality Radio. You're listening to 919. And I want to just cover the area about music, because I know it's a big part of your life as well.
Well, I don't know if it's a big part of my life because I don't create. I wish I could have been a music producer. In fact, my favorite credit on any film I've made is when I made Yesterday. I worked with this wonderful, wonderful old Zulu wizard called. He was an amazing human being, and my credit there is music produced by Darrell Roodt. Oh wow, that's
music,
so cool.
Right? That's a big deal.
And it was just me and him.
Yeah.
In the music studio, and he was sitting in the recording booth, and I was outside guiding him through it because this was all very new to me. I'd never done a music score before, but I was guiding him through this, and the score is sublime. And to have sat there and done that with him was an extraordinary experience. So I've had a few of those experiences. For example, I had the great privilege of working with John Barry. Now, John Barry has won 4 or 5 Oscars for did Dancer with Wolves and Out of Africa and a whole slew of films. So I worked with him at Abbey Road in London, where the famous Abbey Road studios. So we got a 180-piece London Symphony Orchestra there. No, dude, and what an amazing experience to watch your film being projected and John Barry's conducting your movie.
Incredible.
But this is what he does. It's fascinating. So I learned a lot about music from him too. He doesn't want the engineer to mess with the faders. He wants the music to be as pure as he's composed it and constructed it with his conducting. So he'll come in. So he goes and does it to picture and sound. And then he comes and says, "How was that, Darrell?" And it's like John Barry asking, what do you mean, how was that? You know?
Yes.
He says, well, you know, is there anything you want to change? I said, well, actually, John, when the horns came in, when they were talking there, it's just a bit loud and brassy. I think you need to lose the horns
Beautiful.
there. He says, great.
Yeah.
And then he goes out there and he reconducts the whole piece and takes the horns out.
Yeah.
Wow, that's daunting. You've got to be on point. You've got to know your music to do that. You know what I mean? And
that's incredible.
yeah, and composers for me are the final, they put the icing on the cake. So if
Okay.
you've got a great composer,
Yeah.
he can just elevate your film to a dizzy height.
Isn't that another language, though?
It is, you know what I mean? It really is. I mean, and that's an extraordinary gift. I mean, that's I don't know where that comes from. I don't know how they do it. And I've worked with lots of them, and I'm constantly fascinated by their, the way they're able to communicate that emotion, you know? Look, a lot of people overuse music, myself included.
What do you mean?
Well, you do get like, you know, you want to, because you haven't quite achieved the exact emotion on the floor and even in the edit, then you try and cheat it with some music, you know?
Okay.
But you can always feel those moments where they're cheating.
So
know?
you can feel that, right?
Oh, yeah,
because I'm quite
Yeah.
convinced in my own experience of movies, I would have been quite swept away by that moment.
Yeah, no, well, yeah. No, well, I mean, the good ones, you are swept away, and they are utterly convincing, you know what I mean? You know?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So I've worked with a couple. I worked with Philip Glass, one of the greatest, minimalist composers of our time.
Yeah.
What an amazing experience. Same thing. You've got to know what you're talking about when you're talking to one of the geniuses of classical music. you know?
Yeah.
So it's fun. So the great thing about making movies as a director is I get to work with the craftsperson, the craft lady, the craft man who gives you the coffee and you know, whatever, to the actor, which is another experience.
Also
to
a
the
craftsman.
composer.
Right.
Yeah, to the case. So you go through this whole big range of personalities, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great experience.
It is. And yeah, again,
You
what I
become
love-
addicted to it. You become addicted to it.
You know, and every time you do it, it's like you come out of a movie making experience for maybe, you know, 4 to 6 weeks or something, and you are utterly exhausted.
Yeah.
But that's when you're still starting with your edit.
Yeah.
Hey.
No, it's endurance. Being a director, it's pure endurance.
Yeah.
So, look, in South Africa, we don't have these huge, big budgets. So it's always admirable to me. You take someone like, say, Sir Ridley Scott. So even like, say, Napoleon, which a lot of people diss, but I thought was actually a very interesting interpretation of Napoleon. He's 80 years old. He's shooting for 6 months on the trot. You got to pace yourself. So the film we made now was only 5 weeks long, but you got to pace yourself because it's going from scene to scene to scene to scene, and there's no time to sit back and kick and back, and you got to be on point all the time.
No, that's right. In fact, I remember when we were shooting our movie together,
Right.
I was still wrapping up on a TV series.
Yeah.
And in fact, the series was cancelled at the time.
Right.
They had taken the decision to cancel Imbewu. So we were shooting a ton of wrapping up scenes, tying up storylines and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And as soon as it was done, I walked onto your set.
Yeah, I know. So you had to just switch gears and get into it and go. It's like hardcore.
Funny thing though,
Yeah.
shooting in the world of soapy, you get used to changing those gears quickly.
Oh, right. No, absolutely.
Yeah, so it can be quite jarring sometimes.
Yeah.
But it's how you train yourself as an actor.
Yeah, no. I mean, absolutely. I mean, the interesting thing about you is that as opposed to most soapy actors, and I shouldn't be speaking about them. I'm sorry, I love you guys, you know. But, you know, when I always do my first, like, rehearsal, say, with the traditional soapy actors, and I can't blame them because that's the only gig in town, so they do it. And it's also training. You learn acting, you know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But it's always after the first rehearsal, look, guys, if you can dial it down by about 95%, we close. Because they're doing a certain style of acting,
Yes,
which is
that's
only
right.
a distant
The
cousin
soapy
of
world.
movie acting.
Yeah.
But what's amazing about you is that you come in and you switch that gear fundamentally. There's no soapiness going in what you're doing when you're doing it. It's just like, in fact, it's like, can you just turn it up a bit, Jack? Because it's very minimal, you know.
I'm sorry, Darrell. Carry costs more.
Anyway, so I think you switch those gears.
Man,
beautifully.
it's because I've learned through many mistakes
Yeah.
over the years that, you know, this medium is slightly different. In so many ways, on soapies, you actually have tell the story to your audience, and you've got to tell it to them in broad strokes.
Yeah, you've got to telegraph it to them.
And every scene you've got to be telling and telegraphing
exposition all the way.
all the way.
Yeah.
And then you get to filmmaking, and you realize that the director is doing this job.
Yeah.
The camera is doing the other part of the job. The edit is going to be doing the other. So I just need to give only enough for them to be telling the story with me.
Yeah. So, I mean, my first rule always is when someone is like, overacting, you say, please don't act.
Right.
Be
Right.
in the scene.
Yeah.
Understand what the other character's saying.
Yeah.
And be in the scene. So when they ask you how you're feeling, you're listening to that question. You're not remembering what the writer wrote. You must be in the moment. It's a difficult thing to do.
That's a tough one. And I think really, I'd like to drill down into this moment, because it's something I would be telling young performers as well, know, because there was somebody who came to me on a film shoot just last week, and they said to me, very, very earnest young performer, and he was, the question was an important question for him. And he said to me in all seriousness, do you have any tips about how I can create this character? And I said, no.
Well, okay.
Because I cannot reduce this to a tip.
Yes,
I simply can't.
Exactly. Look, the wonderful actors that I've worked with, yourself included, and it always amazes me, is how much backstory they bring to their character that you haven't even thought about. You have thought about, but you haven't paid that much attention to it, I mean, I worked with, say, an actor like Robert Patrick, who brings his acting coach with him, and at first you think,
really?
this is going to be a
to
pain.
set?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
And he's there all the time.
Wow.
And so it was just an action flick for, I think it was for HBO.
Yeah.
Quite a cool film called Pavement, which is about a track in the wilderness, in the Arctic wilderness, whose sister is murdered, and he comes to track down her killer. But even a simple film like that, Robert Patrick he didn't for 1 second dial it in. He was with his acting coach, working it in the trailer, working it. Oh, it was amazing. And so when you turn the camera, what's happening in his eyes, the intelligence, the fierceness, the thought, it's extraordinary. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's a luxury South African actors don't have.
Fair enough. In fact, we don't have the luxury for a trailer either.
There we are. You're always sitting under the gazebo and the howling wind, and then
that's a story to be told as well.
Yeah.
So just if I were to ask now, I briefly described this exchange with a young actor who wants to get a start, a handle on the character. Yeah. What would you tell a young director coming into this? Like they're looking for an edge somewhere. What would you tell them? How would you guide them?
I don't think you can learn directing. This is the weird thing. I think it's a thing that you want to do. I don't think you can go to film school and learn the rules of directing. Yeah. You can. Because then you can learn about putting the camera here, then you need the overshoulder and the overshoulder, and the acting needs to be this. But it's a deeper instinct that you have, And I'm always constantly amazed when I watch films by directors that I admire. Like, say, for example, a great Australian filmmaker, Peter Weir, who made Witness and Picnic and Hanging Rock and Master and Commander and Dead Poet Society. When I watch his shots, I think, why did you put your camera there, Peter? And I don't think he can tell you why he put it there either. It's this powerful instinct that's where the camera needs to be.
My goodness, that was you being 9 years old, man.
No, but you learn that. So I'm actually quite good. So in other words, I don't just do comfortable working height coverage, which means, if you're standing behind the camera, you're not having to stoop a bit or you have to go really low, which is difficult for me now because I'm older. So it's hard for me to get down low, but you need to... instinctively when the angle is telling the story. It's helping the story and the actor and everyone.
So the shot is telling your story, or at least some of it.
Totally. And you can learn that, but it's a deeper instinct. I don't know why I sometimes want to put the camera where I want to do it, but it seems to be absolutely the only place to put it. And finally, there is only one place to put the camera. So in an edit, it's always amazing to me, again, watching other filmmakers work. So that, wow, how did you know to put the camera in the corner?
Yes.
It's fascinating. Yeah.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Sure. And if you have to look at what's available today, stuff that's popular, stuff you're seeing on TV and stuff that, and not nearly enough stuff comes out on the big screen. I think maybe that's part of the culture that we've lost.
Yes, that's definitely gone. Now it's like it's only the big spectacle films that work, but they're fantastic too. I mean, if you go and watch Dune 2 in IMAX, it's like, wow, it's like this ultimate experience, you know. However, you do miss the intimate drama on the smaller screen, but there's that space where you're sitting with a captive audience and you're experiencing it together. We don't have that anymore, you know. And also you can just pause too easily in films. I'm guilty of it too. I can watch a film over 5 days now as opposed to sitting and watching one going. And Darrell, what are you doing? You know, that's not right.
Didn't Scorsese say something about that, reflecting on how we've lost the culture of cinema?
Well, yes, because now everything is superhero films. The Marvel universe. And they're cool too. I love those films. But there's the other films too, you know. And they are being neglected. And I think sadly they will just wilt away, you know. Film is a dying art, and that's fine. You know? It is what it is, you know.
Really? I thought you'd take that quite personally.
No, hey, I can watch films from the 70s over and over and over and over again because they're beautifully made. They're directed. Very few films are directed by individuals now. It's all committee. So, you know, for example, it's fascinating to me. If you pitch to, dare I say it, Netflix, you don't even give them the screenplay anymore. They're not interested. They're interested in the pitch document, the synopsis, what the character's about, and some pretty pictures that tell you that actually this is a science fiction film. Okay. Before it used to be the screenplay was imperative. So you would spend, you know, weeks and months constructing a screenplay that the first, you know, the investor could read and say, wow, I get this. It's not like that anymore. Not even. The screenplay is not important anymore. So that's weird already. You're struggling already. So when you do see a lot of these films, there's no genuine deep emotion.
Well, deep emotions to come. We're going to have a short break now, but we'll be back with Reality Radio and Darrell Roodt.
Stay positive. 919.
We are expecting stage 15 today with only 10 minutes of power.
What? Only 10 minutes of power? You know the drill.
No power. No power.
Wake up. Wake up. You're having a nightmare again.
Blow the whistle on power cuts with the Beast Bundle and save up to 65% on your electricity bill. Subscribe to Solar now from only 1499 per month and only start paying in 2 months. Visit wetility.energy for more.
They say nothing ever lasts. But what about the Fast and Furious franchise? Or showing Anaconda 2 for Friday Action Night? Or how Brooke is still forgiving Ridge Forrester like 50 seasons in? And then there's Burger King's Whopper Meal deal, which is still going strong. So get your hands on 2 flame-grilled Whoppers topped with the freshest ingredients, plus 2 portions of crispy golden fries and 2 bottomless drinks for only 130 Rand. Only at Burger King, where good things do last.
We all love a good story. Stories of love and life. Stories that entertain and inspire. And the best stories are the ones that happen to be true. Every Friday night, Jack Devnarain is live in conversation with an iconic South African personality who shares the true stories that shape their remarkable lives. Join us for Reality Radio, as real as it gets. From 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. every Friday night, only on 919.
It's Reality Radio on a Friday night. You're listening to 919. My name is Jack Devnarain, in conversation with my dear friend and filmmaker extraordinaire, Darrell Roodt. Darrell, you know, we're talking about some very powerful emotions here. You know, trying to capture them and tell stories with them. What was it like on Sarafina? Putting all that together.
Look, Sarafina was a mind-blowing experience on every level. So first I went, you know, and Nan said, we're going to make Sarafina now. It's like, fantastic. This is awesome. So first we go to New York and we watch the kids on Broadway. No, it wasn't Broadway. It was in LA. They were playing in LA at the time. So we watched the, you know, fantastic to watch that with a big American audience. Then afterwards, you're going for dinner with Muhammad Ali and Little Richard and Quincy Jones.
Really?
And I'm like 27 years. I was like, what's going on here? You know? Yeah. So to get in on that level where Mbongeni and Gema had created this breakthrough masterpiece, you know, and then being invited to direct this for him. Wow. I mean, it was a huge responsibility. I mean, it really was. But I mean, I mean, I just approach it with utter passion.
Yeah.
And he has an interesting story, and I know from now I'll tell the story. But okay, so I meet the kids, I meet Laletti, fantastic, I love them all. First day of shooting, all they're doing is complaining about craft service.
Oh, really?
And the food, and the cold drink's not cold enough. So I trioed them all on. That's an army expression. I got them all together.
Yeah.
And I said, guys, what are you doing?
Yeah.
This is a unique opportunity to tell a story that's never been told. It's your story. Forget about the food. The food is fine. So we don't have sushi. Who cares?
Yeah.
Because they'd really been like, they were used to the good life now in LA. And that's fine. It's not that the food wasn't good. It was great, but it wasn't sushi or, like whatever. So I really drilled it into these kids. Come on, guys. Play with me. We're going to make this film about you guys. And after that, they were a dream.
Wow.
Even Samizi was behind me and got into it because he was one of the stirrers, saying, like whatever. But Samizi was beautiful on the film. His passion and commitment was phenomenal.
So in a sense, you had to pull out your regimental sergeant major.
I did, and it was weird because I felt like, the white guy telling these black kids, do it like this. But it wasn't about that. And then they quickly saw how passionate it was because, boy, I got down and dirty on that film. We really immersed ourselves in that film. And it's the only film I've really made that 30 years later still has a very big power inside it,
Let's talk about getting down and dirty now. You know what the South Africa's DTIC film incentive rebate scheme is, and for many young up and coming filmmakers, they would look at you and they would say, we would love to have Darrell Roodt, but we can't.
Yeah.
So
what are you trying to say here, Jack? Look, I'm all for BEE and empowering emerging black film directors, and I've been like that from the early days. I mean, there are a few black filmmakers that I've worked in association with and encouraged their careers, etc., etc., etc. What disturbs me about these kids have it on a platter, yet they only want to make a certain kind of film. So if it doesn't have an action hero, or it's got some drug dealers, or some kind of jokey comedy kind of, you tell stories about your lives, about what it is to be South African, what it is to be young and black in South Africa. Challenge yourself, challenge the status quo, because the status quo is shaky. And you need to stand up for your right. You know what I'm saying?
This is sounding very communist right now, I have to say, Darrell.
So there are a lot of wonderful black filmmakers out there, fantastic, and it's exciting to see that. But just let's go one step further, guys. I believe,
No, I totally get what you're saying, because I fear that we may be veering as a filmmaking nation towards certain genres that are going to appeal to maybe the streamers. I know what's popular right now is action comedy.
And that's fine. I love action comedies. I love Bad Boys, but just don't keep remaking it ad nauseum in South Africa. Why? You can do that, but I think let's do other stuff too. Let's do a broad spectrum of films. So if I was in charge, I would definitely do that. I'd spread the risk, and I would encourage. There are a lot of serious filmmakers out there, but they can't get the opportunity because they pitch it, and it's like, please don't. I don't want to. Oh no. South African fatigue. Oh, I don't want to know about that. Oh no, Steve Biko. Oh, do you know what I'm saying? They just want to make and that's also cool because I love to be entertained as much as anyone else. I love it. I love it when it's just a grand entertainment. But I also like to watch a film that's stimulating.
Do you think? And I look at what streamers are doing, and I wonder whether sometimes the idea of diversity, and especially in putting together a cast complement, has that become intrusive? Has that become a feature unto itself that doesn't necessarily serve the story?
Well, yes and no. I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to say anything untoward about that either, because it's very important. For example, I was doing a pitch document for a science fiction film set in South Africa recently about a black kid in the future living in South Africa. Type in that black kid in sci-fi. You can't. There's no pictures. There's no references.
Yeah.
There's nothing.
Yeah, you see, that's interesting. Yeah.
So I mean, I understand fully why we need to, build that too. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's very complicated.
No, it is. Yeah. It is.
And there's a lot of wokeness, and a lot of wokeness does unsettle and unhinge a lot of films, I believe,
But you're woke. I know you.
Well, here's the interesting thing, and I'm not supposed to say this thing about because there's a film I've done with Jack, but it's a wonderful film called Greytown Girl. It's a beautiful film. I'm so proud of this film.
Yeah.
And why I'm proud of it, because Jack's sister wrote the film and produced the film. And she told a story about her life growing up with Jack. It's actually a true story. And my goodness gracious, what a privilege it was to have a glimpse into a culture that no one makes films about. It's the South African Indian community.
Yeah.
And when I watched it the other day for the first time, complete now, I was just blown away by it. And I thought, why aren't we making more films like this?
I love that you invest so much of yourself in that, and especially just appreciating that you have a glimpse now into this little world. And it's not a world about a genre.
Yeah.
It's not a world about a script.
Yeah.
It's a world of these two people, these siblings, that share this family life, and then they tell a story on film.
It was amazing to me. So that was a rare privilege. But what was really amazing for me is that Rani, your sister, the producer, the writer, stuck by me. She didn't just jettison me because, dare I say it, the color of my skin. She didn't. She believed in me as a filmmaker, as someone who's able to extract maximum emotion. And you can see it in the film, and my heart goes out to her for that. You know what I mean?
And as an actor, I have to say, I could feel those years of experience and earning your place on set. It's always interesting to me that the more experienced and gifted a director is, the lighter their touch.
Yeah, exactly. Because like I was saying earlier about acting, don't act. It's the same trick with like with directing. Preferably don't direct. Let the great actor do his stuff. Let the great cinematographer capture it. Let the great production, let the great writer. And all you do is you become the first member of the audience, and you guide it into this place that's very watchable.
That's beautifully said.
You know what I mean?
So we started talking in the first segment of our show today about using film language to tell stories that are original.
Right.
And I suspect, this is now picking up on that conversation again, is if you look at how technology has changed and helped our industry to evolve, are we now discovering a new originality with the rise of artificial intelligence?
Whew, that's another tricky question you're asking here, Jack. Look, artificial intelligence is a dangerous thing because it's on the cusp of stealing your job and my job.
Right.
So, we need to learn how to deal with it.
Sure.
You know what I mean?
Sure.
Easier said than done. You've just been like overseas on a conference dealing with this very issue. It's a complex issue. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, but I also think it's kind of a useful tool because I was having lunch with a friend of mine today, a black filmmaker, and he's saying it's great, Darrell, because it's the decolonization of the machine. So in other words, filmmaking has been a privileged pursuit to a large degree. For example, when I went to make Sarafina and I was in Hollywood having that experience, I think I met 3 black executives out of all the studios I went to. That has changed fundamentally, you know what I mean? And so artificial intelligence is going to allow some filmmakers to make a cheaper film their way, as opposed to having to get the $100 million from the all-controlling studio. So maybe it'll set them free. I don't know. I mean, the verdict is out on that. Is it going to be a good thing? Because is artificial intelligence, has it got a soul? And that's the big question. Because actors certainly have souls, and directors have souls, and composers have souls. Does AI have soul?
Well, that's the thing. My big concern, because we were talking earlier about capturing powerful emotions in storytelling. It would be easy, and I've seen this. You've seen it on AI. You'd be able to capture an expression of deep emotion. but are you able to create the deep emotion as an actor does?
Yeah.
And then we've reduced this entire thing into, well, what's the difference then?
Yeah. Well, I mean, AI, you can program it so specifically to give you that deep emotion, but it has a bit of this, a bit of that, but it's still lacking what you capture when a moment on set where you just think, wow, where did that come from?
And AI doesn't stop to ask, what's my motivation?
I think his motivation is to destroy the world.
All right, well, that's going to be the next movie. That's the story to be told.
Yeah, exactly.
About AI destroying. Now, hang on, we've already seen Terminator.
We have, very prescient, way ahead of its time.
It was.
I think, therefore, I am. That's a good note to end on, so we should probably end on that, Jack.
You want to end on that?
Well, I
I have one more question before.
Okay.
Have you ever directed theatre?
No.
Well, then let's leave it there.
It's a very alien experience to me. You know what I mean? It's like a different
I would have loved to see you direct a live theatre play. But
interesting.
What a life, and what a gift you have, and what a wonderful friend you are. Thank you for being an amazing, iconic director and a South African personality that will just leave your mark, as you have with so many of your movies. Everybody, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Reality Radio, join us again next Friday night. My name is Jack Devnarain. Have a great weekend.
We are expecting stage 15 today with only 10 minutes of power.
What? Only 10 minutes of power? You know the drill.
No power. No power.
Wake up. Wake up. You're having a nightmare again.
Blow the whistle on power cuts with the Beast Bundle and save up to 65% on your electricity bill. Subscribe to Solar now